This activity is the review of the PARCC Model Content Frameworks, and it can be found on page 28 in the Participants Manual for Cohort 1 and on page 24 for Cohort 2. While this will be an overview of the activity that was presented, the true value of this activity is the discussion and reflection that occurs during the interaction. Our objective for this activity is to construct and validate knowledge of the structure and design of the PARCC Model Content Frameworks for ELA literacy, and to discuss the implications of the frameworks for instructional design. Let's begin by going to the PARCC online website that you can use as a resource. The Model Content Frameworks have a twofold purpose: to support implementation of the Common Core State Standards and to inform the development of the PARCC assessments. So keep that in mind as we delve deeper into the frameworks. Between Cohort 1 and Cohort 2, PARCC released a revised version of the Model Content Frameworks after receiving public comment about the original format, and the new version was distributed to the participants prior to this activity. The chart in the participant manual is no longer accurate, but you can find all levels of the frameworks on the PARCC website and the ELC portal. As shown here, the PARCC website and the Model Content Frameworks can be found by entering parcconline.org. Beginning at the home page, click on In the Classroom, followed by Model Content Frameworks on the left side of the page. Then Model Content Frameworks ELA, also on the left, and drop down to Structure of Model Content Frameworks for ELA Literacy. This will give you a new version of the PARCC Model Content Frameworks. This website can be used as a resource for ELA teachers and when presenting to audiences who do not have an ELA background, because if you'll go back to the Model Content Frameworks, you can click on any grade here that are listed on the left-hand side of the column. We'll click on Grade 3. As you drag your cursor over the words that are underlined in dots, it will pop up with an identifying definition that you can use to audiences who may be unfamiliar with these terms. Using this as a resource for your presentations should be very helpful. The hyperlink statements will take you to the Common Core State Standards if you'd like to take a look at that as well. The PARCC Model Content Frameworks are one option for teachers and curriculum designers to help frame their decisions about what to teach within an instructional year. The frameworks were designed to support success on the PARCC assessments. Let's look more closely at the generic framework before we start examining the specific frameworks from grades 3 through 11. Notice the structure, not the words of the framework. There are 3 vertical components, 1 horizontal row. Notice the colors, the arrows, and their directionality. The 3 columns represent the 3 areas of the major claims that are being assessed: reading complex texts, writing to texts, and research. The arrows show the focus of integration of the 3 components, the major claims, with the foundational skills, the subclaims, as undergirding support, all of which support the master claim of college and career readiness. The bar across the bottom represents the standards that will be taught and assessed in conjunction with the 3 major claim areas. For teachers and curriculum planners, this means that as teachers create student tasks that address the 3 major claim areas, they should also embed instruction on citing evidence, analyzing content, studying and applying vocabulary and grammar, conducting discussions, and reporting findings. These foundational skills are not meant to be taught in isolation, but rather integrated into the reading, writing, and research components. Reading, outlined in the Model Content Frameworks, refers to complex texts, and there is a separate video by Bonnie Hain on selecting complex texts. Teachers of ELA must now balance the number of readings in the classroom between traditional literature and informational texts. Note the 4 modules, A, B, C, and D, which could represent the 4 quarters of the school year, with each containing 1 extended work and several short texts. Note that the 4 extended works are split equally, 2 literature texts and 2 informational texts. This split will be a significant shift for most ELA teachers. The Common Core Standards address a deficiency in student skill because most reading in college or careers is not literary, but rather expositional or informational. Studies show that most elementary and middle school students' reading is comprised of less than 15% of expository texts. Because of this, many times expository prose is more difficult for students than narrative fiction. Some examples of shorter text for literature are poetry, short stories, passages from longer fictional works, and for informational texts, such things as newspaper and magazine and online articles, essays, or passages from longer informational works. Each grade level of the Model Content Framework includes specific recommendations as to the type of texts and the number of texts to be taught per module, the number and specific type of which change as students progress through grade levels. There are 3 types of writing students will be expected to produce: routine, analytical, and narrative. Routine writing should be considered low-stakes writing that is used to develop and convey understanding. In other words, writing is intended as a tool for learning, not just assessment. Note that not all writing must be graded or even read. Analytical writing is included in all 4 modules and is divided by type: opinions and arguments, and inform and explain. Analytical writing puts emphasis on using evidence. According to the PARCC narrative summaries, the length of writing assignments can vary from short answer, text-dependent questions to multi-paragraph papers, but the structure of a teacher's planning is dependent on routine writing, assigned on a consistent basis. Narrative writing is included in the Model Content Frameworks, but the proportion of narrative writing at each grade level becomes progressively smaller from elementary grades through high school, as does the percentage of narrative story versus narrative description. The focus of narrative writing is to hone writing skills through practice and emulation, and to offer an opportunity for reflection. The final component of the writing section is the research project. The key to this component is that research is intended to be ongoing. The focus of the research requirement is to strengthen students' skills in integrating knowledge in reading, writing, and speaking and listening. Notice how the arrows connect reading with writing and reading with research. Research project means that students produce some kind of product based on research skills developed in the classroom. The formality or length of the product is determined by the teacher. Notice the base of the flowchart. These standards support the entire structure: citing evidence, analyzing content, studying and applying grammar, conducting discussions, and reporting findings. All of these standards or skills must be integrated into the teaching of reading, writing, and research. Again, the emphasis is on integration as opposed to teaching in isolation. Let's look at each grade level and compare and contrast the similarities and differences between each successive grade's Model Content Framework. Focus on the particular numbers suggested by the Model Content Framework in each category. For example, reading 1 extended text, 5 to 9 short texts, with 3 to 5 myths or fables and 1 to 2 social studies or art texts. Writing, routine writing, which is ongoing, 2 pieces of analytical writing, 1 to 2 narratives. The research project will be 1 per quarter or module. The chart provides a quick visual suggestion as to the balance of specific literary and informational texts at the 3rd grade level. More extensive information about the text demands and a discussion of how to create coherence in the curriculum, suggestions as to genres and subgenres teachers could choose, possible activities to complete with the shorter and extended texts, suggested time of study are included in the narrative of each Model Content Framework. It is important that teachers and curriculum designers read the narratives as well as use the chart as a guide. Now that we've looked closely at Grade 3, let's compare to Grade 4. You'll notice that myths and fables have now changed to Greek myths, still the same number required. 2 pieces of analytical writing have increased to 3 to 4 pieces of analytical writing. 1 to 2 narratives have increased to 2 to 3 narratives. At Grade 5, you'll notice that Greek myths have changed to literature in general. 3 to 4 pieces of analytical writing have now changed to 3 to 5 pieces. Now let's go to Grade 6. This is where you will see the most pronounced change. 5 to 9 short texts have now been replaced by 3 to 5 short texts because science and social studies have moved to their content area at the middle school level. These are then replaced with 1 to 2 informational texts. 3 to 5 pieces of analytical writing has increased to 4 to 6 with a focus on opinion and a focus on argument. Notice also that the 2 to 3 narratives from 5th grade have now decreased to 1 to 2 narratives. Also, you'll notice the very bottommost bar, Reading Foundational Skills, has been eliminated. It is at this point that fluency, phonics, and word recognition should be established. Let's go to grade 7. You'll notice that grade 7 is identical to grade 6. These middle school grades are identical. If you'll go to grade 8, you'll notice that as well. Grades 6, 7, and 8 have identical requirements in all sections of the Model Content Frameworks. In grade 9, the informational texts have changed to U.S. historical documents. And you'll notice another shift that the 1 to 2 narratives from grades 6, 7, and 8 has now been decreased to 1 narrative per module. Grade 10, identical to grade 9. Grade 11, the literature in general has now been specifically changed to American literature. The Model Content Framework is a suggested framework. PARCC does not dictate that member states follow this organizational plan. Overall, your takeaways should be the following. Like reading, the writing demands are going to shift and progress from grade to grade. Narrative writing diminishes as analytical writing increases. Research must be ongoing and routine to strengthen students' skills in integrating knowledge in reading, writing, and speaking and listening. Proof of mastery is in the product that the student produces. The formality or length of the product is determined by the teacher. Instructional decisions are made by the teacher and should be an authentic and organic part of classroom practice, broken into research tasks. Questions for discussion? What is the shift in regard to the teaching of reading? Fewer texts, teaching more depth rather than breadth, pairing literature with informational texts, possibly science and social studies. What are the connections between writing and reading? More analytical writing, more routine writing. More variety in the modes of writing that teachers teach. Research must become an integral and organic part of classroom and student practice. What are the instructional implications for teachers and curriculum directors? Collaboration between ELA and other content teachers. The creation of a culture of literacy, and how administrators, principals, curriculum directors, superintendents will foster such a culture. This concludes the review of the Model Content Frameworks. Please explore the PARCC online website if you need additional information. Thank you.